welcome to Great British Ghosts. Today we've come to the West Country. Later on I'll be going to Berkeley Castle, where King Edward II was murdered by his wife Queen Isabella in a most grisly way. But first of all, we're in one of the most spiritual places in the country, Glastonbury, which not only has a fabulous history, but it's also home to one of the oldest and most haunted inns in the region. And it's right here in the town centre, the George and Pilgrims Hotel. The George and Pilgrims Hotel is reputedly Glastonbury's most haunted site. It was built in 1475 to accommodate wealthy pilgrims and other visitors to the famous abbey, including King Henry VIII, who came there in the 16th century to supervise its burning down. Over the years, many guests and staff have reported seeing ghosts, and the current landlord's son agreed to show me round. So when does this date back to?
1475.
And what would this part have been?
This is where they'd have brought the coaches up to let the customers out.
And do you get a lot of paranormal activity here?
Yeah, we get some orbs and some energy.
And do you offer the gargoyles?
Yeah, they're original to the building. They're been plastered up to closer now, but they would probably an original brick. But they're quite scary at night when you walk down here on your own.
And what's this?
These are the dray doors to the cellar, and sometimes you can hear stamping on the cellar doors, which sounds like it's echoing through the cellars, which is really scary when you're down there.
Justine, do the locals think that the pub is haunted, or is it just myth?
No, definitely. The locals, some of them won't even come in here. My brothers, my sisters, they're just like, no, don't want to go there.
Because of the ghosts?
Yeah. There's one particular room. When I was younger, I went into it, and it was so cold. It was absolutely freezing. And it was a nice day, because I used to play here. But there was something. There was definitely something there.
I definitely think this place is haunted. I've had a couple of experiences. I had a pint of water, drank half of it, there was nobody else in the room, came back to it about half an hour later, and there was 2 screws in the bottom of the drink. There was nobody else had been in the room, so where'd that come from? I don't know.
Barman Paul Cooper also had a weird experience one day while serving some customers.
One minute I was working and a lady came in, and because it's an eating establishment, we don't allow dogs in, and I thought I saw her walk up the alleyway there. And I was going to say to her, sorry, no dogs, but as she got to that post and walked past, she didn't have a dog. I forgot all about it, you know, didn't think much of it. And then later on in the evening, she then came to the bar, and I actually looked over the bar at her feet, and she looked at me a bit strange. I said, sorry, I thought you had a dog. Obviously, there wasn't one, never mind. But after I finished my shift at 9 o'clock, I went to sit down and have a drink with somebody else, and they were with that lady, and she said to me about the dog. She said, I have a dog that follows me around. And I was like, how odd's that?
Is that a ghost dog?
A ghost dog, yeah.
And this is the way down to the cellar.
To the spooky cellar?
The spooky cellars.
Lots of activity down here, I presume.
Oh, yes, loads of activity. If you mind your head on the way down.
I've got a torch. I can get that out.
OK.
Oh, here we go.
You just mind your head on here.
Gosh, they were so small in those days, weren't they?
Yeah, well, this used to be the doorway here.
Yeah.
And there used to be a door into there. And if you follow me down this way... One day I was down here, moving barrels about, and I usually say hello when I come into the cellar, just to, if there is anything down here, just to make sure they know I'm coming down here, not to hurt them. And I forgot to do it one day, and I picked a barrel up. I just stood there, and then about an inch from my left, something coughed, like and I was like, just wondered what it was, but it really scared me.
What's in here?
This bit here, this is where you would go through to the abbey.
Oh, so this was the tunnel that went to the abbey?
Yeah, if you bang it, you can still hear the echoes.
Now, I'm sure I read somewhere that a monk was holed up in this tunnel on purpose.
Yeah, he had an affair with a lady, and he was put into there and he was bricked up so he couldn't get out. And that's, you see ghosts, people have seen ghosts of a monk and a lady, and that's what they say it is. The lady's come back to be with him.
That's a grisly way to die, isn't it, to be holed up in a tunnel?
It is.
And so obviously that's why he's still haunting the hotel.
Yeah, trying to get back with his long-lost love.
But it's not just the cellars that are haunted. Landlady Kathy Breakwell agreed to show me around some of the haunted bedrooms upstairs. So, Kath, is there a lot of paranormal activity in the bedrooms?
Yes, there's loads. We have guests all the time telling us that they see things, they hear things, they feel things. And this is one of the most active rooms we have. This is the monk cell.
Great name.
Yes, fantastic room.
So, Kath, what's happened in here?
This is one of the most haunted rooms, and it's documented in several books. People have witnessed TVs coming on. They've heard music late at night, harp music, and one lady actually asked if she could move room in the morning because her bedclothes had been taken off her in the night.
But going back to the TVs, is there no explanation for that, for the telly coming on in the middle of the night?
Well, no, because they're all remote control activated, and people are nowhere near the remote controls, and they just automatically come on in the night, and they've ended up taking the plugs out to stop it coming on. I was sat in the flat, and I had my cardigan hung up on the back of a chair, and my son was there with me as well, and the arm just went up in the air and went behind the chair. And so myself and my son said, "That's it, time for work."
And what do you think that was?
I haven't got a clue, but somebody definitely picked the arm up of the cardigan, and there was nobody else over there. The other weird thing is, when guests stay, they say they hear people walking up the corridors at night.
What, and definitely nobody's there?
Definitely nobody's there. They also hear music a lot of the time, and we don't have any music on. And this is one of our 4 poster rooms. They're very nice rooms.
The Abbot Selwood room. This is a stunning room, isn't it?
All original beds.
And what happens in here, then?
Well, there was a guest staying here, and a lot of guests take photographs of all the rooms, and he came back with a photograph, and there was like an apparition in the photograph. And he said he didn't see it at the time, but it's definitely on the photograph. So it's a very spooky old place.
I stayed in this room where we are now and slept in this bed, and as soon as I walked into the room, the best way to describe it was a bit like walking to someone else's party. You know, like when you walk into a bar and the conversation stops and everyone turns around and looks at you. It felt like that even though there was nobody in the room. So I immediately felt really scared. And I didn't sleep a wink that night. Almost the first picture I took had these 3 white orbs stretching across the picture in it. And in my heart at the time, I knew that they weren't dust or just something accidental. I knew they were something. I just did. I began to sweat, actually. I was really scared because I felt so aware of hundreds of years of people and souls and people who've committed suicide here and had traumatic experiences and have been here during traumatic times, you know, like during the Black Death and everything. You could just feel hundreds of years of curious souls looking at you. And I just felt really conspicuous, and I could hardly breathe in and out. You know, like when you're a kid and you're really scared in your room. I mean, like, I'm 53 years old, it's ridiculous. But when you're a kid and you're kind of like, you're hiding under your duvet and you think that if you breathe too loudly, they'll come and get you because they'll hear you. I mean, all those kind of stupid things about being a kid. I mean, it was really like that. I mean, I felt about 5.
Richard Thackway is a waiter at the hotel, and he's seen the ghost of a small child on more than one occasion.
So, Rich, you've had a paranormal experience even here in the kitchen, haven't you?
Yes, I have, yeah. I've been sort of working in here and sort of just, you know, pottering about, putting stuff away. Then it's always like, it feels like there's a presence just more or less where you're standing, you know. And it's always a small person, though. It's never a tall person, but it's literally, it's a few seconds, you know. So you look and it's gone, you know. But yeah, you can feel something in here, you know. I mean, it's through the whole pub's got a bit of a feel about it, but you know, it's just, I think something's interesting. You know, you're watching what you're doing, and I think generally, if there is anything spirit-wise, you know, it's interesting who these people are here now, you know.
I mean, the place doesn't feel bad. It feels really warm, but I think I'd be scared if somebody popped up and appeared in front of me and started speaking. I'd probably join them in death.
You are such a fibber. You just see one. You were as cool as
We didn't see a ghost. It was a shadow. That's different, isn't it? If it came out of the bathroom and go, "What are you doing here?" I'd be on the floor.
So Glastonbury, from its haunted and historical The George and Pilgrims Hotel to its wonderfully eclectic mix of people that you meet just walking down the high street, it's certainly been an interesting day. This is Berkeley Castle, and it was built way back in 1154. It's still the home of the Berkeley family. Over the centuries, it's had many notable guests staying here, the most famous being Edward II, who was imprisoned here and apparently came to his grisly end in one of the cells. With so much history, it's hardly surprising that the castle is said to be haunted.
Berkeley Castle was built in 1153 and has served an important role in English history, including the imprisoning and murder of King Edward II. For approximately 850 years, the castle has been home to the Berkeley family and claims to be the oldest inhabited castle in England. Ghosts are said to abound within its stone walls, and the current heir to the estate, Charles Berkeley, agreed to show me around.
I'm just going to take you down into this room, an amazing room down here.
What room is this?
This is the Great Hall, the sort of banqueting hall, the main room in the castle where they'd have had huge feasts and banquets and weddings and parties. And it's also got some ghost stories, I hear, that you're interested in learning a bit more. There is the story of a lady, there's a lady in white that's been seen going up that staircase onto that gallery, and she's disappeared, literally at the top of the gallery, and she's been seen by one of our guides, so who knows?
Does anyone know who that ghost may be?
No, we think it's a Berkeley lady or a lady who was married to a Berkeley, but we're not sure. All we know is she's dressed in white, fair hair, and she has been seen several times.
Where do we go now?
Right, Michaela, up the stairs here.
This is an amazing area.
This is fantastic, and what I love about this is the wall hangings here, the silk wall hangings. They were made locally in the Stroud Valley, and supposedly it was a Henry VIII's bedchamber at Hampton Court, and it was a gift when he came visiting with his wife, Anne Boleyn, before she had her head chopped off. He came and gave us this.
So some people bring flowers, but Henry VIII bought a wall hanging.
Yeah, amazing.
Okay.
And it's been patched up over the years, but it's stunning. I'm going to take you into the old chapel. Because this is a really interesting room. There you go.
So this doesn't look like a chapel.
It doesn't. It's been changed a lot. This was, in the old days, there was a door at that entrance there, and there would have been an altar up here. And this was turned into a morning room by the last Berkeley, Lord Berkeley, but it was a chapel, and it's got amazing inscriptions on the roof going back to 1400 from the Bible, which were only uncovered about 50 years ago when we were doing some work on the painted decoration. It's got this beautiful fireplace that came from France. And
where does that date back to then?
That dates back to 1400s.
And the tapestries behind you?
And the tapestries are 16th century and they're all Belgian. Really lovely tapestries. It's just a fantastic room.
So has there been any paranormal activity in this room?
There has, and because this was a chapel, we had some people doing some filming here, and they saw a priest. They presumed he's a priest, like a monk, with the hood and everything else. He disappeared through that door. He literally walked through it.
And they saw his actual figure, not just a sort of shadow of his figure?
They saw an actual figure, they saw the face, and then he turned away with the hood over and walked literally through the door.
I guess all these paintings have a history as well.
They do. There are hundreds of them, and they can all, I'm sure, tell a story about their life here at the castle.
Thanks. This part of the castle is absolutely stunning, isn't it?
It's fantastic. It's just beautiful. This whole in a bailey, and there is a story. That stone bench over there. There's a story. My mother was out having her first cup of coffee in the morning with the dogs, and she saw three ladies sitting on that bench in costume, Victorian costume, and she went up to them thinking it was strange early in the morning, and she said they just vanished. As soon as she got within 10 yards, they suddenly vanished, and she was stunned. And my father came out and said, "You look like you've seen a ghost," and she said, "I think I have." Okay, Michaela, we're going into the keep now and up the trip steps.
Why are they called trip steps? Because they're all different levels?
They're all on different levels, and all these soldiers would come running up here, and if the soldiers were defending up here, a lot of them would probably have tripped on the way up. And
how embarrassing.
And then this is amazing. This is the original entrance to Edward II's cell where he was imprisoned and murdered.
So this is where the grisly history is?
This is where the grisly history of Berkeley is, that people really know about Berkeley Castle, is Edward II met his end in this very room.
It's actually not as horrible as I thought it was going to be.
It isn't. It is a room. It's just a very old room with the little windows, and hasn't changed much over the years. But it would have been, it would have been very cold in here and fairly damp.
So what happened to Edward II in this room?
He was imprisoned in here. There was a dungeon, basically a pit, oubliette, next to this cell, and he was imprisoned in here, brought into here for 6 months, and kept by his wife and the barons and various others in this room, captured. No one knew he was here. They kept him here, fed him, looked after him for 6 months, and then decided that they were going to do away with him. He was considered quite a weak king. He had his favourites, and the barons weren't happy with him. And in the end, the story goes, he was suffocated in here, in his bed one night, and a red-hot poker burnt his insides out, which was a horrible way to go.
So basically the red-hot poker was put up his bottom?
Up his bottom, and his insides would have been burnt so that there
was
no mark on the outside of his body, so no one would have known what happened.
Paranormal researcher Richard Felix was one of the first people to come and investigate the castle when he stayed overnight in Edward II's cell.
I've had loads of experiences here. To me, this is one of the jewels in Britain's haunted crown. There's so much trauma that went on in this castle from 1153. Battles, executions, murders. I was the first person to sleep in the room where King Edward II was murdered since he did, and it was on the anniversary. And I slept all night alone. Well, I didn't sleep at all in the room, but I spent the night in there. I'm convinced that someone was standing by the door. So convinced that I thought it was Tim, the curator, that had actually come to check that I was all right. And I sort of sat up and said, "Hello, Tim, hello?" Nobody there, nobody answered. But I just got this ridiculous sense. You see, I don't see dead people. I'm not in the slightest bit psychic, or I may be sensitive to the subject, but it's not anything in my mind. You know, there was someone there, I'm sure. So things happened, but I can't prove beyond all doubt that they were paranormal. But I know for a fact that room is haunted.
Well, Berkeley Castle really is an interesting place, and with almost 900 years of history captured in the fabric of the walls, maybe Richard's right. There could be many more ghosts here yet to be discovered. See you next time. Bye-bye.
More Great British Ghosts tomorrow. Michaela's back with a brand new double bill from 9 only on Yesterday. Next, it's Into the War Zone with the small team of men and women who smashed the world record for building a Wellington bomber.